Hello everybody, welcome to the Heart Creation webinar. My name is Casper Postovsky. I'm one of the co-founders of the Silent Furnace. And, welcome. It's raining outside and there's a thunderstorm going on where I'm at right now, which is kind of a perfect setting for what we'll be talking about tonight. You know, every time I begin to talk about this topic, I get very excited, but also kind of tongue-tied because there's so much I'd like to share with you about this. And I've got a whole presentation here prepared for you guys today, but this is really so much more than I could put into words. It's an experience, and if you get it, if you really tune into it, into the truth of what this is really about, it's life-changing in a very positive way. It alters you forever completely because you begin to see reality, perceive what you used to believe was real through a totally, completely different set of eyes. And that can be a real game changer. It's kind of like that scene in this movie. I don't know if you've seen it. Inception, with Leonardo DiCaprio, this scene where they're walking through the dream and all of a sudden it begins to collapse, to fold in on itself. It's kind of like that. Your old perception of reality changes so drastically that what you used to believe was limiting, what you used to believe was real, so alive and real, was actually just a figment of your imagination. And everything begins to change. So what I'll be sharing with you guys tonight, and what this is about, it's much more than just heart creation or creating from your heart. It's an almost totally secret way of existing, a secret way of being, which the ancient indigenous cultures have taught about for generations, but has gone largely ignored. It's extremely powerful. There is a way of existing in this world that's possible, a way of existing, a way of being without thinking. We are actually navigating through life without thinking, without trying to figure life out constantly and having things get in your way. It's a flow state. And it sounds almost impossible to believe, but it's a state in which problems take care of themselves, decisions make themselves, stuff just kind of flows. And again, it's because your consciousness is rooted in a place where it's kind of like buckle your seatbelts because Kansas is going bye-bye. Your old way of seeing is just not present anymore. This, like I said, it changes your whole relationship to life. All of existence begins to respond to you differently. People around you respond to you differently. Animals certainly feel it when you're tuned into this frequency of consciousness. It is a way of creating without duality. And what I mean by that is, as you learn later in the presentation, is when you're navigating through having your consciousness rooted in the brain, everything you perceive, you see as two, as duality, as separateness, opposites, good and bad, better, different. And when you create from duality, whenever you go about creating in your life, whether you're just mindlessly creating or you have some new age belief about manifesting your reality through thinking, you're always going to get the opposite. So you get what you want, but you also get what you don't want. And this roller coaster can last forever until you get tired of it. I certainly got tired of it in my life at one point, and this is when this other way of perceiving reality began to spring forth. So in a sense, this is a way to hack the matrix. You know, these days there's a lot of people talking about conspiracy theories and what's really going on, and the Illuminati and the depopulation agenda, and how you should free yourself from the system. And these are all valid and real things. I've definitely been had my share of interest in it myself. But at the end you realize it is still within the system. It is still within the perception of reality in a certain way. And what we'll be talking about here tonight is about not becoming free within the dream, but waking up out of the dream altogether, and then lucid dreaming. And so everything gets turned right side up. So before we begin, let me just tell you a little bit about myself. As you're probably wondering, who this guy blabbering is. Like I said, my name is Kasper Bostowski. Here is a picture of me and my daughter. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I have been for my whole life, and the author of many ebooks and webinars on sustainability. I've always been interested in how to live more in harmony with nature, live more in harmony with the planet. As I saw, we're clearly destroying everything and living in a very dysfunctional society. But besides all those things and all the businesses I've been involved in, there's always been a secret part to my life because very early on in my life, I had a very powerful spiritual awakening, which altered me forever. It happened when I was just 18 or 19 years old. And it was really funny continuing to live in a world where money still existed, and I had a business and a partner and all these things, when my inner reality was just completely, for lack of a better word, destroyed. It was as if a nuclear explosion went off in my heart, and it altered me so completely. I was actually completely dysfunctional for a year or two, until I started figuring out how to function in the world again. And many years later, after not speaking about this experience and what I began to perceive, I decided it was time to share what I've experienced with others. And this is why I co-founded The Silent Furnace with my very good friend Joshua, who's not here today, but you'll get to hear him later on in the webinar. Together, Josh and I host these webinars every single week, and we're reaching thousands and thousands of people with this message. And today, I guess you'll be one of them. So, that's enough about me. Let's continue. Now, before we get into the science of this and the esoteric part of it as well, I want to share with you the kind of mindset that I was in when I began to first look at this stuff really deeply. This is one of my favorite quotes by Adyashanti, really a good teacher I highly recommend. He says, if you want to wake up, the first thing you have to seriously consider is that you're asleep. And everything you take as real as a dream. Now, it's one thing to say, one thing to think, but when you take it to heart, when you take it into your whole being, things can begin to change very quickly. Because, it's a very powerful because, the key thing in here is everything you take as real as a dream. And we like to think that we know what everything means, but you really don't know what everything means until you're seeing it. So it can be kind of scary, it can be kind of a wild ride, but this is kind of when conscious awakening really, the spiritual rubber, so to speak, meets the road. So, let's begin. There is basically a field around the heart, and it's extremely powerful. And unless you're aware of this field and what its purpose really is and how it works, then it's kind of like you're just playing in a sandbox. You haven't really begun to see how reality actually functions. It's really wild when you really begin to look at it. So before we get into the esoteric stuff, I want to talk about this field and just look at the science that's coming out about this right now, because there's a lot more just at the physical heart alone than we like to believe. When I was a little boy, I was taught that the heart is just a pump, and without it you die, but it's a muscle and it beats and keeps your blood flowing. But as we'll see, there's a lot more to it. This field has now been scientifically measured. It's about 8 to 10 feet in diameter. It takes the shape of this toroidal shape, like a donut. There's actually two fields, one big one and one smaller one, but we'll just talk about the one field for now. It is extremely powerful, like I said, and if you understand the technology of how it works, it's actually the key to creation. Not just the new age belief creation of manifesting a reality with your own thoughts or something like that. It's a very more immediate type of creation and in seeing. It has a specific frequency, and it can be measured electromagnetically. To simplify it, basically, I would say it's a frequency of unity. It's non-polarized, sorry. And that's what I was talking about earlier. It creates things in unity, not from duality, not from two, but from a sense of oneness. And when it's fully active, it has been measured to be as large as 5 miles in diameter. It's quite amazing, because that means that your own field around your heart has the capacity to affect a very, very large field. So when you wake up to this field and begin to resonate with it, you realize why it starts to affect your whole life very, very quickly, because everyone around you in existence itself responds to it. This toroidal shape is actually quite interesting. It begins very, very early. When you're just a bunch of cells dividing in your mother's womb, first you actually start as one cell, obviously, and then you divide into two, and then into more and more. And for a while, when you just have a few cells, you actually take the shape of a tetrahedron, which you can see here. But then those cells begin to divide and divide and divide and divide, and very soon you have thousands of cells, and you begin to be one heart. You begin as a heart, one giant, well, not giant, but very tiny heart. And what's interesting is that this heart takes the shape of a toroid, like this. So nature begins to reflect this shape very, very early on. And of course, you begin to grow and grow. What's interesting is out of this toroid, and I have a picture of it here, but the first thing that starts to happen is something begins to protrude out of it. And it's your tongue. And that tongue grows and grows, and very soon what begins to surround this tongue and heart formation is the lungs. The lungs form next. And so the lungs, the tongue, and the heart are very intimately connected. And we'll be talking about that later on, how breath can actually take you into the heart and really help you with this process. So let's get into the science of this. Let me get a drink of water here. There's an organization called the Institute of Heart Math, which has done over 19 years of research on this stuff. And what they're mainly concerned with is measuring this field of the heart and all the various things that we can tell about an individual just by the field of the heart and what the heart is doing and how this is affecting reality. Gregg Braden is also another really, well, he's definitely popular in my book, a scientist who's talking about this field all the time in his talks that he hosts around the world. And some of the material he presents is just mind-blowing, and we'll go over just a tad of it tonight. But it's all points to this fact that there's a vast intelligence inside the heart that is connected not just to your subconscious mind or your consciousness, but with everything, with everybody on the planet, and with the center of the galaxy and the whole universe itself. When you begin to access this deep intelligence, it's almost as if you can make magic happen in your life. Let's just say that. Hope you guys heard that thunder. That was perfect timing. One of the things that the Heart Math Institute has found very early on is that the brain receives more signals from the heart than the heart receives from the brain. So, originally we're taught that the brain is kind of the master of the human being. It controls everything. And it is the center place, the vortex of intelligence inside the human being. But what we're seeing now, more and more, as science catches on to this through the work of Heart Math and people like Gregg Braden, is the brain is looking more and more like a receiver, just an antenna, an extension of the heart. Because the heart is actually older than the brain, as we talked about earlier, and saw how the cells divided. The heart comes first. The brain comes much, much later. After the tongue and the lungs and everything else comes. The brain, what we're seeing, is just, like I said, an antenna, a receiver. The heart is actually doing more processing than the brain. The heart knows things before they actually happen. What they found is that by measuring the heart rate variability, they can tell a lot about what a human being is experiencing emotionally. Now, normally when you see a heartbeat on the monitor in the movies or something like that, or in the hospital, you just see beep, beep, beep. No one really pays attention to what happens between the beeps, but there's actually a variability of distance in time between the actual spikes and heartbeats and the different rhythms of the heart that are between the major heartbeats. What Heart Math has done is actually measured those distances and found that by measuring it, they can tell exactly what a person is feeling, where they are in their cognitive process sometimes, And what they did is they put people in front of these computer testing machines and connected them up to it to measure their heart rate variability. And they exposed people to random images that are made to trigger certain emotional responses. So, for example, you'd see something that make you feel sad or shocked or scared or terrified or happy. And what they found is that the heart was responding to the images before they actually appeared. And not just moments before they appeared, but seconds, entire seconds before the image actually appeared. And there was actually a university experiment that took this a little further. What they found is that when they connected people up to a computer device, which is supposed to generate random numbers based on the person's consciousness. Don't ask me how they did this. It's just a very famous experiment you can Google later on. At first they see random outputs, but very soon they found coherency within the chaos. And all of a sudden, randomness wasn't random anymore. And they found natural variance in these random number generators. And they placed these random number generators in this experiment all over the world. There's thousands of them. This is just a crude map I created for this presentation. But imagine these computers that are sensing human consciousness and producing random numbers all over the world and measuring the consciousness of humanity. And usually what they found on the graphs is that consciousness just kind of hums along as we're going about our business, going to the mall and doing our Christmas shopping. Nothing really peculiar happens. But when a global event of significance happens, especially something tragic, something very interesting begins to appear. And what they found during September 11th is that many, many hours before the event actually took place, all the random number generators on the entire planet registered the event several hours before it actually occurred. If you're looking at the graph here, the attacks took place roughly at 8:45, 9 a.m. in New York, Eastern Daylight Time. But at 3 a.m., what you're seeing is the graph just went off to scale. Usually, what we're looking at here is a variance in the variables in these readings. So normally, normal consciousness just looks like this. It's humming along. But, several hours before the whole entire event took place, human consciousness, the hearts of human beings on the entire planet begin to register the event. And that's wild. And that points more and more to the fact that there is a vast intelligence inside the human heart that is completely outside of time. It's not constricted to time and space. So when you begin to access it, some pretty amazing things can begin to happen in your life. All true intelligence, all true insight and inspiration arises from this place. And not only is it possible to create from this place, but you can actually see from the heart. And I mean that literally. We think that we see with our physical eyes, but as I mentioned before, the brain is just an antenna. And the physical vision you have, while it appears to be true, it is just an extension of a deeper consciousness inside you. In the book Living in the Heart by Drunvalo Melchizedek, which is an awesome book, I highly recommend it. Drunvalo, who writes about this whole toroidal, this field of the heart, and gives many accounts and experiences of just how wild things get with this, writes about his account with a woman called Marianne Shinfield. And this woman was completely blind. Technically, she had no eyes, yet what she can do is everything that you can do without any assistance. She can watch television, read books, even drive a car. So looking at her from the outside, you would never even know she was blind. Not only could she see just without her physical eyes, in the room that she was in, she could see any point in the solar system at will. To the point, and this got so serious to the point that NASA actually performed various tests on her to see how she was able to have vision, because they didn't believe that she could see what she was saying she could see, especially things in the solar system. So they had her actually read the back of one of their satellites, and she did. She read like a reading, a barcode or a serial number off of a satellite that was in orbit, and proved that she could not only see, but see a lot more than just what was in front of her, any point in the solar system. To me, that just blows my mind away and changes my whole paradigm. But really, this isn't unusual because more and more people are experiencing this, the fact that they can see without their physical eyes, with their heart. And this is a beautiful movie you could watch later on after this webinar. YouTube this movie. It's called Through the Eyes of a Child. It's about this incredibly psychic girl who can actually see without her eyes, using her hands, but also without her hands. And not just see, but into this time, but outside of time, throughout time, and any point in time. It's just really, really beautiful, and it really opens your eyes to what's possible when you begin to access this deeper field of consciousness. So as I said, it sounds unusual and mysterious, especially if you're new to this stuff. But in my book, at least, it's really not. It's just reality. It's how things actually work. In our society, we are so conditioned to just focus on the five senses. And this is kind of in a sense, this is really the true conspiracy, because we're conditioned to focus on what we believe is real. All the advertising out there, all the conditioning is telling you, taste this, touch this, eat this, have sex with this, look at this, have this. So this is obsession with the five senses. But there's more than there are a lot more senses than the five senses. When you begin to lose your interest in just this five sensual reality and drop down into the heart, there's a whole other reality there to experience. And you begin to see what's been covered over your eyes for so long. So to me, this isn't anything mysterious. It's just everyday reality. It's what Josh and I talk about all the time in the Silent Furnace, and share this experience all the time with people. So it really boils down to this, guys. The true nature of reality, everything that you see in front of you right now, whether you're sitting in a room or maybe you're at an airport listening to this webinar on your iPad, everything that you sense, you can see, everything that you ever have sensed or will sense and experience, it originates from your own heart. If you could imagine this field around your heart emanating from the center of your chest, it is kind of like a little holographic bubble where everything around you right now is being projected from the center of yourself so that you could experience it as yourself. And coming back to this quote from Adyashanti that we looked at in the beginning, the fact that you seriously have to consider that you're asleep and everything you take is real as a dream. When we begin to look at reality from this perspective, that everything in this field around you, everything seemingly physical, is a product of this field that emanates from your heart, this is what I'm pointing to, is that the dream itself comes from the center of your heart. Everything that you in your life right now, everybody you love, it all begins inside of you. And this is not something to really be thought about or understood. It is just something to be sensed. Because if you can sense it and begin to tap into that, then an entire new dimension of experience opens up for you. You begin to see that there's really nothing separate from you. There is no separation. There is no duality. Everything that you experience is an experience that originates from the center of your own heart. It is your own creation. And when you can take that responsibility, that deep, conscious responsibility for it, things can begin to change quite rapidly, I'll tell you that. So the true awareness doesn't shine from the head. It is not a mental awareness. It is an awareness that shines from the center of your heart, like in this cool little alien picture here. So this is all, sounds very esoteric and kind of woo, but there's actually a direct application to this. And it's really not hard to do. It's the basics, and that's what I want to really give to you here on this webinar. Creating from the heart. How can you apply this, so to speak, into your life and begin to see some measurable results? There's this new age myth that you can manifest your reality with thoughts, some secret, or the law of attraction. If you just think enough and positive thinking and all that stuff, then you're going to attract your reality and get what you want. And in one sliver of a sense, that may be a little bit Well, not even in one sliver of sense, I'll say. It's a gross misconception, as you see later on. For this reason, anything that you do with your thoughts, with a thinking process, really originates in your brain. And what we've talked about and covered so far is that this really isn't where the juice is at. So it's not where reality really fundamentally resides in. It is a perception of reality, but it's not really the ultimate truth. The brain is polarized. It's split in two. If you just look at it, it has two halves. Left side and a right side. Left side is more logical, they say, and the right side is more creative. And most people don't know this, but you actually have two dreaming bodies. Your consciousness can be rooted in either one. But if your consciousness is residing in your brain, if you're really perceiving life from your brain, then you're always going to be in polarity, in this sense of good and bad, and judgment, thinking, analyzing, and in doing. And like I said earlier, whatever you create from the brain ends up in duality. So you get what you want, but also what you don't want. You get the dream you've always dreamt, but then you get from the brain, and the brain does not know unity. It only knows duality. It's what it's made for. It's made to experience duality. However, when you descend and take your consciousness down into the heart, you begin to see things very differently. When your consciousness is rooted in the heart, it is a place of singularity, of oneness, and there's a sense of unconditional love. You know, most of us, we talk about love, but when very few moments in your life where you experience that real burning sense of unconditional love. I know it definitely happens when you hold a newborn child of yours for the first time. It's something I definitely experienced. This burning realization that you love this no matter what. And there's no judgment on it. It's just completely void of duality. And when you're in your heart, you begin to see everything like this. And this is why you have an access to a much more fundamental and deeper intelligence. And you can function much better from this place. There's a sense of timelessness. And what we'll talk about very soon is the heart. It operates not through thoughts, but through images. And these images arise from the center of your heart. And if the conditions are right, those images turn into reality. So these two dreaming bodies, you can confirm this just by looking at your dreams. You know, most often the time when you dream from the right side of your brain. So these are the weird dreams that we always kind of categorize into and put into that, wow, that was a messed up dream category, where you're being chased by something, or all of a sudden your mother's in a room and she's trying to hand you a box of Kleenex, and George Bush pops up and you're looking for earrings, but all of a sudden your ears are falling off and you're trying to super glue them back on, or some weird stuff is happening, you know. This is all in the realm of the mind, when nothing really makes sense, and there's always some kind of problem, and you're trying to figure it out, and there is an emotional side to it, but it's incoherent. And sometimes, I don't know if you had this experience, but when you dream, your dreams take a very different form. They're in a form of resonance, and there's this almost like a prophetic feeling and a feeling of peace and love, of meaningfulness and depth and beauty. And this is not the same type of dreaming. This dreaming arises from the center of your heart. And depending on where your consciousness is rooted, whether it's in the brain or inside of the heart, your outer reality will look like that too. So you can either be having one of these dreams of duality, of good and bad, and weird stuff happening all the time, like most of us experience. You know, nothing really goes our way, things are getting in the way all the time, and you kind of want something to happen, but you know, there's just a sense of rubbing up against in life all the time. Or you can have this other experience of connectedness and flow. As we'll explore later, silence and the breath is actually one of the keys of entering into the heart and becoming aware of this field. So it's a completely other way of being and navigating through and perceiving reality. Instantaneous creation takes place from this place. If you just take one thing away from this webinar tonight, whatever you want to call it, God or consciousness or source, it's always there. It's always there in the center of your heart, in this singularity. And you can connect with the source of that at all times. when you come into the heart, you realize that what you thought was real, what you thought had this mass, it doesn't matter anymore. There's a deeper reality inside your heart. And we call it emptiness. We call it silence. Because it feels as if it's devoid of all form. It's this in this realm of pure potential energy, and it's intelligent love. As my teacher once said long ago, intelligent love. I just rung a gong in my heart. I'm going to play for you right now, guys, this clip with Josh and I from an earlier webinar called A Crash Course in Ultimate Reality, and where we talk about this creative process and how to begin to access this field, what it means, what it feels like to begin to touch this field and begin to create from your heart, and how this technology of creating from your heart really works. So I'll turn myself off right now and play this clip for you guys. Hope you guys enjoy it. What we really want to communicate to you guys tonight is heart creation. If there's one thing you can walk away from this webinar today, is this understanding of how to navigate through reality with your heart. If you just get this and you begin to wake up to it, it's going to change the fundamental way you perceive things, how you experience your life. It's wild.
And then the rest of the journey will happen automatically.
Yes.
Regarding awakening, ascension, and meeting all your ET brothers out there in space.
Whatever it is you're into. There's this misunderstanding that thoughts create reality and have something to do with this creative process that we're in right now. That this is all real and solid. The reality before you is has some kind of substance, some kind of material reality, and that there's time, and time is real. And the big misunderstanding is that awareness shines from your head, from behind your eyes. The reality is that reality is spontaneously created from your heart, and not the emotional heart, the sacred heart. You are dreaming right now. You are the dream and the dreamer, and all things arise and disappear within you. And your true awareness shines from your heart. Now, it's one thing to say, but it's one thing to feel through and through, balls to bones, in your entire being. And this is a journey to be made. And a lot of you listening are on the precipice, or perhaps already on it, or on the other side. This is really a journey from spiritual infancy, as you see on the right here, to spiritual maturity, or what we call the flow state. Let's look at spiritual infancy. This is where 99% of people on the planet are. It's a place where you're fear-based, you're fear-driven. Most of the things that motivate you, like we looked in the beginning, this horizontal journey, it's mostly fear-driven. I don't know who I am, and I don't know really what I want, but I'm going to pretend I know what I want because I'm afraid of dying, afraid of non-existence, afraid of I don't know what, but it's driving. It's the fundamental fire.
Afraid of not having enough?
Yes. Fear, fear, and more fear. And it's duality projection based. There's this constant idea that it's out there. I'm not enough, it's out there. I need to get it. I need it. I'm not happy, he did it to me. You did it to me. They did it to me. The world did it to me.
Projections.
God, maybe God did it to me. I'm the victim. And from this plate, there's really no sense of unity or harmony. It feels like you're constantly tripping over yourself. You have no idea what's really going on, and there's not a sense of being in touch with the deeper harmony of existence. What you begin to enter through this process of manifesting, creating from the heart, is spiritual maturity. This is when fear, for whatever reason, is slowly replaced with gratitude and love. And
trust.
Mm-hmm. And there's a deeper intimacy with life. And that's one thing to talk about. It's impossible to describe, but it's just amazing how you can create and dance and begin to experience yourself as consciousness, as freedom, as unlimited. And so you begin to be driven by your heart, by this intelligence in the heart. And this experience is an experience of oneness, where you don't feel so separate anymore.
And spirit comes in and starts pushing you to do stuff that you had no idea that you were supposed to do. Stuff like silent furnace, etc.
Or whatever. And this is the flow state. And a few people talk about it, but it's really overlooked. It's not really a state. It's your natural state. It's what you naturally are, in harmony with creation. Problems usually just solve themselves. Things get really easy. Decisions make themselves. Stuff just happens without you doing it. Without you having to go to a manifestation circle or watching something or doing affirmations or whatever it is you believe that about reality that isn't true.
In that state, it's all about just stepping aside and stop doing anything, and things will be done.
It is creating from your heart. This is a really cool graph. We'll show you, because it basically destroys this whole the secret model. The secret. If you just know the secret, you can have anything you want. You can have money,
big Ferraris, and all that.
You ever watch that movie? It's all like, you can have money and you can get rich. It's spiritual. It's material spiritual.
I am creating my own reality. Me.
I. So this is valid, actually. It does work, but it's in a sense a form of black magic. It is working with the nature of reality with a very twisted perspective.
And the reason it's twisted is because it's born in duality.
In the brain.
It's born in polarity. If you look at the brain physically, it's two halves. It's cut in two. So this is the reality we are living in. If we're living from our brain, it's polarity. So anything we manifest and create from our brains will always have its polar opposite.
Yes.
So the perfection will never be reached.
This is very important to realize. It's repeated. When you create from your head, from your brain, you create duality, polarity, two. You create what you want if you actually happen to get it, but you're also going to get what you don't want. Always. It's almost
one way or the other.
It's undeniable because you're creating from a place of separation. I want $1 million business. I've done this one a few times. I don't really know who the hell I am. I have no idea what I want. But I've somehow convinced myself that this is what I want. This will make me happy. And so I go through this process, which we'll talk about, and I get my $1 million business. But of course it comes crashing down, and it comes with stress and health problems and relationship crises, because there's no harmony.
It's out of sync.
If anybody who's playing this show that this manifesting thing works is just putting on a big charade. Trust me. Done it myself.
You're listening to a guy who speaks from experience.
Everybody has a sense when they hear this whole manifest your reality. You just gotta think it and visualize it. There's always like this little thought in the background. You ignore it, and it doesn't feel right. That's because of this. Let's look at the graph again. It starts with a thought. And what do they teach you? They say, okay, now you gotta put it into an image, see it, okay.
See it for you.
But that's not enough. You gotta
see it in your mind.
See it in your mind.
Yeah.
You are seeing it. And then that's not enough. You have to turn it into a mantra, affirmations.
Yeah.
So
it's called repetitive insanity.
I had so much fun with this. And so you were taught that you gotta first of all visualize it, and then you gotta feel it emotionally. But if you just do those two, it won't work. That's the other thing. 99% of
you have to push it, because creation doesn't happen that fast and that easy.
You gotta push.
You have to push it.
And 99% of the stuff you pump through this, it doesn't work unless you do all three. And even then, it doesn't sometimes work. And then you gotta feel it with all your senses, your 5 senses in your body. So if you want to manifest rain, you gotta see it, you gotta feel it emotionally, and you gotta hear it, smell it, taste it. Whatever other
You're gonna have to run around on the porch screaming out, I have $1 million, I have $1 million, and really convince yourself you have it.
Yes. And if you put a lot of energy into it, sometimes the universe might respond, and you're gonna bend reality.
And then you think you created it.
And this is success, and this is being in harmony with nature.
Yeah.
Now, the other process of manifesting with your heart is actually what is always happening. The brain thing is just a distortion of what the real process is. The real process of creation always happens spontaneously. It happens with an image.
From silence. You sit in silence, and there's just this impulse of inspiration flowing through you, with no preconceived thoughts and ideas or any agendas or anything. You just sit there and suddenly something merges out from your heart.
And it turns into this feeling, but it's not quite an emotion. It's more than emotions. Emotions are very frivolous. They just kind of fizzle out. It's you said inspiration. It is what comes before emotion. It is a sense of rightness. And whenever this arises, it's just such a warm feeling.
It just feels right.
It feels right. We could call it love, but it's playful and it's unattached.
It's harmonious.
This other process is all about attachment. This other process is all about truth.
Yeah.
Alright, I'm consciousness. I'm free. I don't really want anything. Everything I want is right here. But, okay, well, let's play. And then whoosh, the whole thing unfolds.
You can also say it in a different way. You can say, once you actually start getting quiet and you are able to listen to spirit, to the divine is like, oh, finally, there's one guy on this planet who's actually listening and paying attention. Let's use him. And suddenly you're going to have all these images and feelings coming up.
And suddenly spontaneity and this whole sense of things happening all at the same time, harmony, what's that word for it? Synchronicity begins to unfold, and you're wondering, wow, like it feels like the whole universe is supporting whatever it is you're creating, and it's happening so fast. You're like on a roller coaster.
Yeah. And if the mind starts thinking about that, it freaks out.
And the thing is, this is not something to be, you cannot understand this process. The brain will try to figure it out, and it actually thinks it's this process on the right. And this is why there's so much confusion in this whole manifestation mumbo jumbo teaching stuff. Has nothing to do with thoughts. If you actually look back, close your eyes right now and look back through all the things that happen spontaneously and effortlessly in your life. It was always spontaneous and effortless. Did you do enough thoughts and affirmations and a million things? It was always something just peeled away, and all of a sudden. All right, and I'm back here with you guys. Just to summarize what we said there is basically heart creation. It begins with images, not with thinking. And these images, they emerge from silence. And this is actually what the ancient teachings of some of the tribes like the Kogi, the ancient teachings of these indigenous tribes talk about, is that reality is created from your heart. The heart dreams in images, and if the conditions are right, these images, this dreaming, it turns into your outer reality. All right, you guys, well, I've talked here for quite a while tonight, and it's almost time for me to go to sleep. It's quite late where I'm at right now, and the rain keeps falling. And, we only had time to scratch the surface here tonight, and there's so much more that Josh and I would like to share with you about heart creation, how to get into the heart, and how to really kick this process of getting into the heart and creating from the heart into full gear. So for those of you here tonight who joined me on the webinar, I want to do something extra special for you guys tonight. What Josh and I have created in the Silent Furnace is something called the Heart Creation Master Course. For those of you who don't have just a passive interest in this, but really want to take this to the next level, and if this really resonates with your heart, then this is something you really want to get your hands on and really begin to study more in depth. What the Heart Creation Master Course is a series of audio courses designed to take you into the heart and push through some of the most common blocks which come up. And one of the first things you get inside the Master Course is something called the Trinity Breath Guided Breathing Meditation. This is extremely powerful, and when you get this course, it's one of the first things I recommend you do right away. Because as I said, the lungs are intimately connected with your heart. It's one of the first things that forms when you're just a tiny bunch of cells, is the lungs. First the heart and then the lungs, and they're very closely connected. This breath meditation, if you've never done breathing meditation, this is not to be taken lightly. It's extremely powerful. It's a series of exercises to help you push past any emotional blocks that prevent you from really residing, taking your consciousness down into the heart. Most of us have trauma and issues that keep us really from entering the deeper layers of heart consciousness, because as soon as you begin to touch that area, it begins to be uncomfortable. but this thing will just blast you right through it. And a lot of people who do this, they have really powerful experiences. I mean, you may just go right into a experience of samadhi or bliss, or you may have some giant cathartic emotional release. It is extremely powerful. It's one of the first things we recommend people do who really want to explore this field. And it really brings you into the heart. The next thing in the course is the Heart Creation Supernova audio course itself. And there's 2 audio courses here. There's the basic course and the advanced course. In the basic course, we just go over a little bit of what we talked about here tonight, but a lot more in depth. And we talk about the places where your consciousness gets stuck in this process of coming down from the brain, from brain-centered consciousness into heart-centered perception. And then inside the course, we have the 0-point guided meditation. And this guided meditation is designed to take you into stillness, into silence, into the darkness of your consciousness. You know, our physical eyes, they thrive when we see light. When you have no light, you can't see. That's just the way it works. But the heart actually works exactly the opposite way. It thrives in darkness. In physical darkness, first of all, when you have your eyes closed, helps a lot. But there's another type of darkness that it thrives in the silence of mind, in the silence of your own consciousness, of your spirit, you might say. And most people have a very hard time getting into this point of silence to commune with the heart in this field. And this meditation just basically blasts you right into that into that silence. It is also extremely powerful. A lot of people who are listening to it have very powerful experiences. So normally this entire master course sells for $297. But tonight, for you guys only, and only for the next 60 minutes after this webinar ends, you can get access to the whole thing for just $97. And that's not all, as those infomercials would say. Well, I'm also decided to give you guys some more extra really cool goodies from the Silent Furnace tonight. You guys are also going to get access to the Crash Course on Ultimate Reality recording, which is about an hour and a half, I believe. And it's a webinar we used to have online, but we took it down. It's no longer available. My friend Josh, who had a chance of getting a little taste of what it's like to listen to both of us together. We have a lot of laughs together. But he has died twice in his life and gone to the other side and come back. And both of those times he's seen some very interesting things about how things work, what's about to happen on this planet in terms of the global awakening, you know, the whole 2012 story, and what it's like to be on the other side of the fourth dimension. We talk about ETs, the whole extraterrestrial presence, what's happening with the sun, and we talk about a true history on this planet, what really happened, and how do we get in this whole mess that we're in right now in the first place. Most people don't know, but our history is much, much older than what we were taught to believe. For example, like these skeletons that they're uncovering right now all over the world, they're giant, 10, 20, 30 times larger than the average human. What are those doing there? And why are they millions of years old? And what's this pyramid doing under the ocean in the middle of Bermuda, which is, by the way, larger than a pyramid of Giza? So this recording is really, really cool, and it answers a lot of questions. Second, you also get The Rise of the Matrix, which is an extended recording that Josh and I did based on his experience of dying and coming back, what he saw, and then over 15 years of research. And this tells more completely, even more completely than in the Crash Course of Ultimate Reality, this history of what really happened on this planet with humanity. 13,000 years ago, you find out we were a very advanced race, and something specifically happened to cause a drop of consciousness, which we're now coming full circle to a return of this consciousness back on planet Earth. But it's a very interesting story. We talked, I think, for about an hour on this. We talked about the birth of duality consciousness, how this happened, and what was life like before on Earth 13,000 years ago, what took place. So you might find that very interesting. And it's extremely liberating because, a lot of people get so entrenched right now in this whole story of the Illuminati and the whole depopulation agenda and how we're being suppressed and the conspiracy theory. But when you look at the larger perspective of like 13,000 years and what's going on this planet and what's really happening with the global awakening, it makes a lot of that look like we like to say at the Silent Furnace, a fart in eternity. So it's liberating in that sense. And also, you'll get access to 4 of some of our best Silent Furnace recordings from past live webinars. And usually the membership is $70 a month. So you're getting a whole month worth here of free content right from the Silent Furnace. And I think you're going to really enjoy this. So all this together is about $170 worth of stuff. You get it for free right when you get the master course tonight from the webinar. So basically you're getting about $500 worth of stuff for $97. And for you guys tonight, we're also going to do something special. For the first 10 people who get the course tonight, I'm going to send you our private contact email where you can ask Josh and I any question about the whole heart creation process or anything you heard about here tonight or in any of the other courses. So to get access to everything right now, just click on this button below. There should be a button that appears right now below this webinar somewhere. It says add to cart or buy or order or something like that. I don't remember exactly, but click on that and I'll take you to the order page and you can get everything. And of course, everything comes with a ironclad money back guarantee. If you're unhappy with any of this stuff for any reason, just email Silent Furnace. You'll see the support link in there, and we'll be happy to return your investment. Thank you guys very much for listening tonight. I hope a lot of this stuff resonated with you, and I hope that, like me many years ago, this struck a chord and a gong inside your heart and plants a seed inside for some deep, deep change and awakening. All right, thank you guys. You guys have a good night, and again, thank you for joining me on this rainy, thunderous evening. Ciao. Good night.